Now let's talk about the American economy. There are fresh fears of a recession there.
This red-hot job market gradually cools off.
The electric car company is reportedly laying off 10% of its employees.
Google has announced another round of layoffs with more than 700 people being let go.
People sitting in India, do you recommend them to directly come after their bachelor's or have 2 or 3 years of experience before coming here?
Don't come at all.
Hello everyone, welcome to the second episode of Ground Reality. In the first episode we had Sapnil, who was a civil engineer, and this is the second episode where we have Rahul, who did his masters in computer science, and we will be asking him a series of questions to help students in USA as well as students in India on how to get internships, how to find universities and so on. We will divide it into 3 chapters. First is his college life, second is about his internship, and the most trending thing is the job market in the computer industry. So this is Rahul. Hi Rahul.
Hey, hi Piyush. What's up? So yeah, I'm Rahul, like he explained, and I recently graduated with a master's in computer engineering, not computer science, degree from NYU, and I'm soon gonna join a company in NYC, and I'll be like software engineer there.
So my first question is how did you decide to come to the US from India? Did you have any friends, or what was your influence coming to the US from India?
So I've always wanted to, explore things. I don't like to stay in one place for too long. And one of the best things you can do if you wanna explore different worlds, I would say, then is definitely to go abroad and study. So that was mostly my motivation, and that was the reason.
That's good that he wanted to come out of his comfort zone and try to explore new countries, and USA is definitely a great country to come in. My second question is how did you filter universities when coming to the US? Did you have any filters such as ranking? Obviously people look at rankings, but how important is ranking, and what other factors you look in a university while selecting that?
So rankings is definitely rankings are one of many factors, and we should not just look at them from a narrow perspective, because at the end of the day it depends on you, because for you cost might be a much more significant factor than a ranking, for example. Also there are factors such as scholarships as well as assistantships, and of course the job scenarios, right? Which areas, which localities might be better for your own job opportunities, if that's something you're looking for. But rankings can definitely be deceiving. I would say they are often I would say bought in a sense. So just be a little careful before considering that. And job opportunities in the US is generally not affected that much based on your college ranking, except for, let's say, the top 5 or top 10 universities in CS at least. Other than that, it really does not matter as long as you are in a, let's say, a top 50 university. So you should try to prioritize your university choice based on other factors.
Got it. Because it's really important when students are in India, they are mostly focusing on going to IITs or IIMs, and they don't have much options. But in USA you have hundreds of universities, so there are a lot of factors such as cost, obviously, how the program structure is, how the faculties are, and so on. So my next question is, what is the typical course structure in USA? In India we have a fixed number of subjects that we need to take, but I think in US it's different. You can select your own subjects, how many credits you have, and what it needs to graduate.
Yeah, that's true. In India the curriculum is often very rigid, but in the US it's always very, very flexible, especially in NYU. And for example, I'm in a computer engineering degree, so it's kind of supposed to be a mix of electronics as well as software, but I was more interested in software, so I could just pick those subjects exclusively, and that was okay, because universities in the US give you that amount of choice that you can shape your own curriculum to some extent.
Got it. And how many credits do you need to take to graduate? Is it for us, I graduated from Purdue, and we need 30 credits to graduate, and each subject is around 3 credits, so that makes it 10 subjects. So how is it in NYU?
So for us it's a total of 30 credits. On an average it comes to about 3 courses per semester, which you need to graduate. And besides that, in the spring semester, right before you graduate, the course load is very light, and ideally you're doing an internship instead. And for the summer semester, it's the same, that you could take a course, but ideally you would be doing an internship, and I think it's similar for most universities.
Yep, that's right. And the next main question that my audience might have is, what's the cost of education that you had here, like considering the living expenses as well? Like in New York, definitely it's expensive. So when you consider cost of living, rent, groceries, and all that, and also the tuition fee, like what's the amount that you have paid in order to graduate? Like what's the total cost? Just a ballpark, if you don't remember it.
So
exactly.
first thing I'd like to say is that people often make a sweeping statement that New York is expensive all across the board, which is completely wrong. Because when they say New York is expensive, generally what they mean is Manhattan. And yes, it is insanely expensive. I cannot live there. So, but there are like spaces around it, like Brooklyn or Jersey, where you can live at reasonable costs, right? So, for to be very specific, for NYU, again, the costs are very much varied. So I'm from Tandon, but so Tandon is a little bit on the, I would say, more, the fees is a lot more reasonable than all the other schools, right? So for us, it's like per semester we pay around $15,000 to $17,000 per semester, just the tuition fee, and your living expenses come around, I would say, if you're living in Brooklyn or Jersey, then I would estimate like it could be around $1,300 to $1,400. That should cover your living expenses.
So that's per month, like considering all groceries, rent, utilities.
Yes, but again, it depends on your lifestyle. If you want to party a lot, then you're probably gonna blow up your entire tuition fee on in 1 month. You can definitely do that in Manhattan.
I think considering your tuition fees as 17,000, and you were a student for 4 semesters.
So I was a student for about 4 semesters. Yes.
So it should be 17 into 4, like 68,000 in tuition fees
So
approximately.
for Tandon, it's a little different because, like I said, for summer and spring, it's like so you didn't count summer, I guess, but for spring as well, the course load is very low.
Okay.
So you pay for less credits, right? So for 3 semesters, it is, so the fees also, just to add, the fees has increased. It was 15,000 when we started, and now it's 17,000.
Inflation.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be more when you're coming here. So for us, almost it's about 15 into 3, and for the last semester it's much lower, like 2 or 3,000, because the credits are lower basically.
Got it. So that were the expenses if you want to come to the US for your masters, especially in New York. And after talking about expenses, I have also heard that there are a lot of scholarship and assistantship opportunities in US universities. Like in Purdue, if anyone gets 0.5 TA or full TA, their tuition fee is waived off, and additionally they also get stipend. So it's very easy and it becomes reasonable to do their masters. But how is the case in NYU?
So at NYU, teaching assistantships and any kind of on-campus jobs in general are very hard to come by, because I would say the pay rate is a little bit on the higher side. So at NYU, the pay rate is around $28 per hour, and that actually does help you cover, depending on the number of hours, that will actually help you cover all your living expenses if you get, let's say, a 20 hours per week on campus job. But yeah, like due to the higher rate, it's definitely much more difficult to get it. So I would say do not count on it. But if you get it, that would be helpful. However, since it's a private university, your fees would not be waived off just by getting any kind of assistantship. I think for some research assistantship, there might be an exception where your credits are waived off, something like that. But they're very rare, basically. So yeah.
So assistantship opportunities are very competitive in the US, but it's definitely possible. And Rahul had assistantship in his previous semester. So how did you get that? Like, did you approach your seniors, directly apply from the website, or how do people get that?
So in my case, and in a lot of my friends' cases as well, it's like if you perform really well in a course, then the professor takes you more seriously. And if they, so in my case, my professor even interviewed me before giving me the assistantship, but even getting the interview is hard, right? So ideally what you should do is just try to perform really well in a course, and also try to get like in touch with the professor, like talk to them. They're very helpful. Like that's something I feel is very different, very like even in India some professors are helpful, But in the US, I feel on an average, like the professors are much more willing to help you, and they have a lot more industry connections as well. In any case, get in touch with them, and in case of if for getting an on-campus job, the best way is to just take a course, perform really well in it, and have a good relationship with the professor.
So that's really good. I didn't have any assistantship opportunities at Purdue, but I honestly didn't try hard. But if you try hard and make good relations with professors and perform well in courses, you might definitely get that. So now let's move to the second chapter, that is internship. So this is the second chapter where we'll talk about internships. अरे भाई राहुल इधर आजा किधर जा रहा है?
Yeah.
Moving on to the second section of the interview, we will talk about internships and how Rahul got his internship. So my first question is, when do you usually get eligible for an internship? Like in US universities, you have some restrictions when you can start your internship. How does it work in NYU?
So yeah, like you said, different universities have different sort of restrictions. Like I have heard some universities allow you to do internships right from first semester, but NYU is not one of them. So at NYU, like it's the general rule that you have to be in the country for, you have to be in the degree for at least 9 months before you can actually get a internship. However, of course, like you can have the on campus from the first semester itself.
And the second thing, like how did you get your internship? In India, I don't think we have any set process. Like you usually get internships through your references or something like that. But how do you approach internships and how do you work on that?
Sure. So internships are definitely like like when we were coming here, the market was initially booming. So I'm a fall 2022 student. So like those guys who relate with this, but before we were coming here, at least the CS job market was quite insane. As in, we thought getting an internship would be a piece of cake, but it obviously wasn't as soon as we were here. So, for example, I had to apply to like 500 companies to get one single interview, like which fortunately converted into an offer. But it was really tough, and honestly, it mostly comes down to like a bunch of optimizations you can do in your resume, in your application process, right? Like how you're reaching out to recruiters, going to events, and most importantly, how many applications you're actually going for.
So it matters like how much applications you do in addition to the quality of your application. Now moving to the last section, which is the most important thing of this interview, like what's the job situation and how you can get a job, and what are some of the ways that you can find it. The questions usually students have that, do you actually have a job? But as Rahul mentioned, he converted his internship. So one of my questions would be, how did you convert that? Like, is there any process for that? Or
Sure. So in my case, like my internship wasn't directly converted. So even in my team, I don't think so there was a headcount right away. But what I did was like what my manager did, he was like really helpful, and he actually wrote me like a very nice review, and I think that really helped things, because what actually happened is I applied to a new grad role separately, just like everybody else, right? Even though I had did an internship at the company, but since it's a very tough market, they were not directly converting anyone, even if your performance was very good. So my reviews were very good, but even then my team did not have the headcount right away. But fortunately, after I applied to the new grad role, some other team, I'm guessing, saw the review as well as my resume and the fact that I had interned here, and then they gave me another interview for the new grad position. So it was just one interview and it was pretty straightforward, but yeah, that was the process.
wow, so this was kind of easier for you compared to some other guys who did not get their internship converted. So
That is true,
what
yeah.
is the usual recruitment process in the computer industry? Like, because many of us, like in civil, there are hardly 2 or 3 rounds or sometimes even a single round. But I have heard that your industry is very competitive and they have a lot of rounds. Like companies like Microsoft or something have 5, 6 or 7 rounds. So what's the typical process that a CA student goes through?
So it depends on the role you're going for. For new grad, generally the rounds are probably like 2 to 3, right? Like for new grad, it isn't that much. So for new grad, I think the real challenge, in fact, right now in general, CS, the real challenge, which I'm sure everybody relates to, is getting an interview. That's the biggest challenge right now. Forget about getting an offer. And like generally for new grad, you have 2 to 3 rounds, and for senior positions, as you go more senior, you generally tend to have more and more rounds. Like one of my friends interviewed for a senior software engineer position, at a company, and she had to give like 8 rounds of interviews. And so yeah, like that sums it up.
As you heard, like new grad might not have so many rounds, but as you go as you go towards some senior roles, you might have a lot of rounds. Another question, like this question might be mostly from the Indian audience who are wishing to, like, who want to pursue their masters in USL. What's the usual salary range look like? I don't want an exact amount that you got, but what's the closest ballpark that you can say, like how much they can expect to earn as a graduate student in the CS industry?
So for CS, I would say if you're a master's graduate, and generally you should be aiming for, in case of new grad roles, I think you should be aiming something around 120k. And if you are, let's say, 2 or 3 years of experience, then you should definitely aim a little higher. So maybe like 150 to 160. And that is not to say that people are not getting 200 or 300. But these are my estimations for the average, software engineer.
This was an interesting answer. So CS people can expect in Indian rupees it might be anywhere from 90 lakhs going in the upwards of once year or more. So that's a really good thing. So in this tough job market, like as you said, getting an interview is hard. So what skills students might look for, and what are some of the certifications that they might do, and how actually are they really useful in getting a job?
So one thing I would suggest, and one thing I believe helped me, was actually trying to find what you're good at. So what I mean by that is that a lot of people that I see try to just pretend that they are a master of everything. That software engineering is a very broad field, and if you are claiming with your resume that you are good at everything, then you are never going to be able to compete with someone who has actually try to go in depth in one field. For example, if somebody is really into machine learning, then I would recommend them to just entirely focus on that. And I know it's a bet that maybe it reduces the number of jobs you are technically eligible for, but it also increases your chances for other jobs. Now the nuance here is that if you are a new grad, then I feel it's okay to have a little bit of a general profile. But as you are like, let's say like 1 year, 2 year, 3 years of, you have 1 year, 2 year, 3 years of experience, then I think it's very important for you to actually, find your own area of expertise and try to showcase that in your resume, because that really stands out.
As you heard, like there might be a lot of fancy roles in the industry, but you should find your niche. Like if you are in machine learning, I don't know the technical subjects, but if you are in machine learning, AI, you should focus on that and try to strengthen your resume accordingly. And like again, what are some of the certifications if you want to mention? I have heard about AWS, like a lot of my friends talking about that. So is it really helpful?
So I recently got a certification called AWS Solutions Architect, and I feel for a software engineer, something called system design, where we just in general, I would describe it as just designing systems on a little bit of a high level in the real world, right? Not literally coding things down. It's about architectures and software. So I feel like that's really helpful, both from a credibility point of view as well as from a knowledge point of view.
Got it. That's nice. So you talked about the importance of having a niche, but for students sitting in India, like what are some of the fanciest roles that people usually look for when they are graduating, and what are some of the fanciest companies? Like obviously we know about Google and all, but if you would like to mention some of the roles and companies that are ideal for you guys.
So a lot of people, when we come from India, like we only know like a few companies that we have heard of. But of course, like it's a new country, and there's a lot of companies that hire only in the US, and they pay at par with FANG. So I would suggest this website called levels.fyi, which actually gives you salary estimations. So a lot of time, like come across a job, and it's like if I check the salary on Levels, I realize that it's very insane. And it's not just about the salary, of course, right? Like there are companies with really cutting edge tech stack, right? It could be some new age startups that you could be part of, right? So I think what you should do is try to notice on LinkedIn the people who are posting about getting new jobs, or like just stalk like a bunch of people LinkedIn profiles and see where they are working at. Do a little bit of a research. Because getting into FANG as of now, I feel it's more of a numbers game than a skills game, because everybody's applying there, and these companies are like not hiring that much right now. So probably a better idea is for you is to actually go ahead and try to find a lot of other companies which are very, very good, both for your career, in terms of pay, in terms of culture, and a lot of things. So yeah, just do your own research and try to find these companies.
So as you all listen, like apart from Fang, there are a lot of companies, a lot of startups. Like I know that the situation is bad right now, but keep trying, make the applications go, and that's how we will get one. The next question is like people sitting in India, do you recommend them to directly come after their bachelor's or have 2 or 3 years of experience before coming here? Like what's the ideal way, or what do you think is a good option for them?
I mean, don't come at all. Just kidding. So the market is really bad right now. So I would definitely say that if you are comfortable financially, then I would definitely say risk it. Okay, but if you are not and you're coming here with a loan, then definitely, like think a lot about it, because a lot of people are struggling a lot. Even I had to struggle a lot during my internships, but I was lucky enough to get a full-time offer. But a lot of people are still struggling right now. So point number one would be that if you have a good job, good stable job in India, then maybe you should just really think about it before coming here. And if you don't, then I would suggest get like at least 1 year of experience before coming here. That's probably like ideal, because you stand out a little bit from people that don't have any experience. But at the same time, you have to realize that your experience in India wouldn't be valued as much in the US, right? So I would say a good balance is like 1 to 2 years of experience. And right, of course you could come as a new grad or with a lot of experience as well, but I feel that's the best spot in my opinion.
So as you listen, like there are a lot of opportunities in the US and the salaries are also quite good. So if you plan your financial accordingly, you might able to recover costs as well as save a lot of money out here. And last question, like there are many people sitting in the US, like many of my friends finding internships or jobs. So what would be your best advice that you can give them coming from this industry?
So I would just like to reiterate, just find what you're really expert at and try to, show your expertise, because right now, since the supply of software engineers at least is significantly more than the demand, then it's all about standing out. So previously it was just about you having the skills. So if you had the skills, then you would get a job. But now you have to have those skills, as well as you have to be able to show it. So basically ढिंढोरा पीटना पड़ेगा. So you have to like post on LinkedIn, and not the cringy posts, but actually posts that might add value and show your own knowledge, right? And try to showcase, like build in public. You might have heard about building things in public. So make your own YouTube channel and talk about the projects you're working on. Build some proof of work, build some credibility online. So that is something I would suggest. Of course, it doesn't guarantee you a job, but right now nothing can guarantee you a job. But I definitely feel that if you do these things, and if you just keep making these small optimizations, they would add up and eventually give you like the next better opportunity you might get.
That's a really great piece of advice from Rahul. Talking about social networks, he also has an Instagram account and he has recently become a creator. So what was your motivation behind that? And he has 2 or 3 reels on his account and all of them have crossed 20k or 30k views. So what got you started into that?
I mean, I just got tired of seeing all those reels about that if you had done content creation 5 years ago, then you wouldn't have to work right now.
Hello.
So I don't want to see those reels 5 years later. So I was like, might as well.
Wow, that's great. So I will include the handle for Rahul right here. You can definitely check out his reels. He creates relatable posts for Indians or abroad students in US. So that might be definitely to get some time off of your job applications. Thank you for your time, Rahul. It was great talking to you. Thank you for your piece of advices, and first of all, like congratulations for getting an offer in this market, and thank you for coming on this video. Yeah, so that's it guys for this video. See you in the next episode.